Welcome to our final lecture in week 15 on working in the field. So the first section that we are going to discuss is what are employers looking for? So typically this is an in-class activity, but being online I've moved this to our discussion board post for the week. So there's more details there about it, but just to briefly describe it, your goal for this week, or your task for this week, is to find a job posting for a substance use disorder counselor. So this can be something that you find online, or maybe in the classifieds of a newspaper, anywhere you can find a job posting for a counselor. And so you'll find that post, and then you'll answer these basic questions about it in the discussion board. So you're going to let us know what the job title is and the agency that's hiring. You're going to write a little bit about their education requirements and the experience requirements that they're looking for. And if these things are included, write down what the salary range is, what are they going to start off paying, and then also what are some of the job duties that they discuss in that post. And then if anything else stands out to you, you can include that as well. So this is just a good exercise so you can see what exactly employers are looking for and what education experience they want to have, how much are they willing to pay, what would you be doing in this sort of job. So definitely make sure that at the end of the week you go through and look at that discussion page and look through all the postings that your classmates discuss. That way that you can get some more information about those different jobs. So when you're looking for a job posting, try to make sure that it's in California, just because in other states they have different licensing requirements, so it may be a little bit different. But if you're having trouble finding one locally, you can definitely do anywhere in California. If you can't find any in California, you can definitely include ones in other locations, but just kind of note that those licensing requirements for a counselor may be a little bit different. So next we'll look a little bit at certification and licensure. So the first step to becoming a licensed substance use disorder counselor is to finish the program that you're in here at CR. So when you complete the Certificate of Achievement in Addiction Studies, you've fulfilled the requirements that these different certifying agencies are looking for education. So CR's program in addiction studies is fully accredited, so it fits all of those requirements for licensure. And I included a link here to the catalog for CR, just kind of reviewing the basic requirements and classes that you need in order to graduate with the Certificate of Achievement. And then the second part is to go through the certification process with a certain organization. So currently there are 3 organizations in California that are providing that official license and certification to become a counselor. And so the first one is through CADI. It's the Addiction Counselor Certification Board of California. The second one is CCAP, California Consortium of Addiction Programs and Professionals. And then the last one is the California Association of DUI Treatment Programs. So the first link under counselor certification organizations, that takes you to the webpage for the Department of Healthcare Services in California, and that lists currently what certification organizations they recognize. And so these are the 3 that are listed. It may be something that changes over time, so it's a good thing to kind of keep an eye on. On that website, it also tells you for each of these organizations when that certification expires. And so each of the different links here to these different organizations, the links will take you to their web pages that are describing overall their process for getting certified through them. So they all result in a certification that allows you to act as a substance use disorder counselor in the state of California. So go ahead and copy the links or download the PowerPoint and click on the links, and browse through those pages and see what you learn about the process of getting certified through these different agencies. And the next part of our discussion is thinking through self-care, which is definitely an important aspect to keep in mind when you're working in the social service field. So I wanted to share this poster. It's a little hard to see here in the PowerPoint, but I did include a copy of the PDF on our Canvas page, so you'll find that under the supplemental materials heading. And this was a poster that was given to me and I had hanging up in my office for a while, just kind of describing some basic things to keep in mind to help take care of ourselves. And so it talks about the importance of exercise, the importance of meditation, and the benefits of hobbies like reading or having green space around us. The benefits of laughing and eating well and making sure to take time off and also sleeping well. So these all describe some really important self-care practices that you can implement. And of course the image here that they've created is that doing those different things is like tending a garden, and so when you are able to have those inputs, then you can take care of yourself so that you can flourish while working in this field. I also included a link here, and again this is also uploaded onto Canvas under our supplemental materials, this link for a self-care assessment and plan. So this is a cool little worksheet to work through if you're interested. It provides a tool that looks at different strategies for maintaining your self-care in the physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual aspects. And so it kind of gives some ideas of different strategies, and then you can fill in the blanks and rate how often you are engaging in those different practices. And so it's a good way to kind of brainstorm some things that might be something that you want to add to your self-care routine, or maybe let you see what self-care practices you're doing really well and maybe ones that you might think about incorporating in more or increasing. And then the second part of that document is that it also at the end has some questions that you can work through that kind of helps you thinking through a self-care plan for yourself, and kind of some questions to help guide putting that into writing. So that's a cool activity if you want to check that out on our Canvas page. And then just a few tips that I wanted to share as well, some things that are good to implement and practice in order to maintain self-care, is that when you're working, make sure to take a lunch break. Any time that you can set aside for that half an hour or an hour just to not be working is really important in taking care of yourself. So whether that's going on a walk during your lunch break, or maybe just playing a game on your phone, or just sitting in silence, or even taking that lunch break with coworkers and interacting and socializing, whatever you need during that time. It's just a good reminder throughout the day to just take that pause for half an hour or an hour and focus on ourselves and kind of put the workday on pause and not bring any of that into our lunch break. Another key is to have supportive relationships with those that you're working with. Whether it's your supervisor or other coworkers, that can be really beneficial in the work environment and can be a great outlet to get that support when you're working in this field. Another tip is to be organized as much as you can, and to create lists of what you need to do each day. And maybe that isn't something that works best for everyone, but it can be really helpful and might be something that you think about doing, just as a way to kind of keep yourself on top of things. That way you don't get behind in writing notes or completing discharge plans or whatever it may be. If you can create a list or at least some sort of organization system where you know when certain things are due and what you have coming up, then that can be really beneficial in helping you stay on top of things and not become overwhelmed by your tasks. Another good tip is to take deep breaths and remain in the moment. That's a really big part of self-care, is just kind of serving ourselves well by the breaths that we take. and being able to be mindful is really important as well. And the last idea here is to be kind to yourself. It's not uncommon to feel overwhelmed or burnt out at different points. I just want to reiterate that if you do feel those ways, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you or that you've done something wrong. It's definitely just kind of the nature of the work that we do. And of course, the goal of taking care of ourselves is that we prevent that as much as possible. But recognizing when it happens and being kind to ourselves when it does happen is really important. And also just remembering that we're humans and that we have limitations and we won't solve every crisis, and that's okay too. We're there to be a support to people and to offer help to people. Of course, they're not always going to take advantage of that, and that's just something that we kind of have to recognize is that's their decision and that's on them, and we just keep offering that help, and even if it doesn't fix everything, that's okay too. And so I wanted to touch on a little bit more the ideas of burnout and compassion fatigue. And so here's a quote that I wanted to share that I think sums this up well. It says, "We have not been directly exposed to the trauma scene, but we hear the story told with such intensity, or we hear similar stories so often, or we have the gift and curse of extreme empathy, and we suffer. We feel the feelings of our clients. We experience their fears. We dream their dreams. Eventually, we lose a certain spark of optimism, humor, and hope. We tire. We aren't sick, but we aren't ourselves." And so that's just kind of something to think about when maybe you start experiencing these things and feeling those things. And I think that this quote just kind of captures that well to explain what burnout and compassion fatigue look like in our everyday lives and in the real world when it happens. I like as well the statement that it makes. We have the gift and curse of extreme empathy, and we suffer. I think that is something that's a big part of the underlying piece of burnout and compassion fatigue, that we get into this sort of field because we have that compassion. We want to serve and help others, but at the same time, that gift of compassion also makes it really hard to keep going and to keep offering help when we see a lot of unhappy endings, or we aren't able to help people reach their goals. And so that can take its toll as well. And so again, recognizing burnout and compassion fatigue, we want to do all that we can to take care of ourselves, to prevent it from happening, and to take care of ourselves when it is happening. And so just some more signs and symptoms to kind of be aware of and on the lookout for. Chronic fatigue, insomnia, forgetfulness and impaired concentration and attention, physical symptoms such as chest pain, heart palpitations, shortness of breath, gastrointestinal pain, dizziness, fainting, and headaches, increased illness, loss of appetite, anxiety, depression, anger, loss of enjoyment, pessimism, isolation, detachment, feelings of apathy and hopelessness, increased irritability, and lack of productivity and poor performance. So these are definitely some signs to keep in mind if you're experiencing them yourself, or maybe if you're seeing them in a coworker. It might be a key sign that someone is starting to feel burnt out or feel compassion fatigue. And so one more quote about self-care that I wanted to share that I thought was really good and something to keep in mind is this one here. And it reads, "Self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer others. Anytime we can listen to true self and give the care it requires, we do it not only for ourselves, but for the many others whose lives we touch." And so that's ultimately the goal with self-care, is that we are helping ourselves first so that we continue to help others. And so with these things in mind, your quote-unquote homework for this week is to practice self-care. Make sure that you're doing what you need to do in order to take care of yourself. So take some extra time this week just to be a little bit more intentional about that. I'd encourage you to do the self-care assessment and planning worksheet that's included and just kind of think through, what does self-care mean to you? What can you do to best take care of yourself? And then make sure this week that you are doing that. So that wraps up our lecture for this week. Again, make sure to complete the discussion board on finding a job posting and discussing that. And then there's also a quiz as well. And those are your main tasks for the week. So that kind of concludes most of our work for this semester. Of course, next week we'll be diving into the final exam. So the study guide for that is posted on Canvas, and there's also an email sent out with some more details about that. So make sure to check those out if you haven't already.